My name is Varat Chine. Currently, I work in Indio Networks. That is a company based in Baner where I work as a software engineer. Most of my work pertains to software development, basic PHP development, and also managing multinational companies network. So in that profile, basically, I have to understand the company's network architecture and make sure that it is completely secure and no external or internal threat can affect the company's data or resources. Previously, before this, I used to work at India Forensic. There, I was a VAPT auditor. So, a VAPT auditor is nothing but a person who conducts VAPT audits. So, what are VAPT audits? They are, as the name says, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So, what I used to do was I used to conduct audits on their network, on their data infrastructure and network infrastructure and storage infrastructure, so that I could identify the flaws. I acted as a potential external threat to their company, obviously under their own, under their permissions. We cannot do penetration testing or VA audits without the company's previous authorization. So that is a kind of a role that we as cybersecurity professionals we have to pursue, so that we can know where are the endpoints and where are the problem areas in an organization. So as this was actually meant to be a joke, but it's not a joke. Live, laugh, get hacked, and stop laughing. So everyone is living, laughing, enjoying, and everyone around us knows some guy who has got a phishing email, some guy who has got their social media account compromised, or some guy who has gotten their credit card information leaked. Recently, if you guys have known, in May of this year, there was a Domino's breach where I think most of us might have lost their phone numbers or addresses in that leak. So it's not our mistake, but it's Domino's mistake. So they should be held accountable. And after this information is getting leaked on public media or on public forums, we cannot take it back. That is gone now. That is done. The data is there forever. So actually I had planned this today's session as awareness program, and more into personally how can we protect our data or our organization's data. But I think that since most of us here I can see are in Gen Z or millennial generation, so everyone knows how important it is to protect our data and privacy concerns. You guys are the pioneers of tomorrow's data architecture. So I won't waste much time in telling you guys how to protect your data, but I'll just tell some of the things so that you can educate people around you. Most of us are aware about these things, but people around us, some people who are not from technical background, don't know these things and the importance of these things. Uh, we can come back to the careers part later, but we'll start with the awareness part right away. So just give me a minute. Cybersecurity awareness training is a must. So technology alone cannot protect you from everything. You as an individual, you as a person must know where you stand, where your understanding about the technology and understanding about the uh, application which you are using is. That should be clear in your mind, so that you won't compromise your data. So corporations or organizations, governments spend millions of dollars uh, in the security and cyber architecture or cyber infrastructure, but it is still not enough. You have to be cautious on you. People think that people are the last chain of line in the line of defense, but it's not the case. Actually, people are the first, since most of the attacks occur with the people's and with people being the endpoints, or people leaking their information, like where they live, their weak passwords, or maybe some misconfigured server files which are shown on public domain. These things cannot happen in big organizations, otherwise their data is at risk. So any organizations or any companies or any institutions, even a college, should educate their students how important it is to keep their cybersecurity needs above everything, at least in data flow architecture wise. So, but people think that any attacker is not interested in me. I don't have any bank account, or I don't have any credit card information present anywhere on any app. But it's not just about the credit card information. The credit card data, or most of the credit card architecture, or debit card architecture, or banking fintech architecture today in 2021 is pretty much well secured, or we can say that. And even if your card gets even if your personal information, or even if your card information is out there, you can just contact your bank, and they will bring down that card, or block that card, or do something about it immediately. But this part, the medical data, prescriptions, insurance, identity fraud, they are more actually in demand, or more valuable pieces of information that you cannot change. You cannot change your identity card. You cannot change your Aadhaar card number so easily. You cannot change your medical history easily. That's something that cannot be done. So it is important that you keep this data secure as well. Cybersecurity awareness is must for everyone. So hit on the fact that uh, people get scammed because of their carelessness. That is the most important thing. Malwares or ransomwares, or all the attacks that we hear to nowadays or today, those are just because uh, they clicked on some malicious link, or maybe they clicked on some wrong video, or some wrong link which led them to some dicey site. So that is not acceptable. So what can we do to protect us? The most easiest solution is right in front of our eyes. That is uh, backups. Redundancy, or backing up things, will protect you and your organization at any given point. Even if you take a backup and keep backing up your system after, let's say, 15 days or 10 days, and even if your system gets compromised, even if your machines are infiltrated with some ransomware, and the data is all encrypted, you won't be needing to pay the ransom to the attacker. You won't be needing to pay them hefty amount of money just to unlock your data. After all, it's your data. You should be in control. So even if someone takes access of your machine, and if your data is compromised or just encrypted, backups will help you against ransomware attacks. So you can just format your drive. So what does a ransomware do? Ransomware is just a program which, when executed on a computer, will lock your file system with some encryption, maybe SHA-256, or maybe some other encryption, so that not SHA-256, but it will just encrypt your data, and the key for that encryption will be present with the hackers. So what do they do is they ask for a ransom, and only after you pay the ransom, they will give you the key to unlock the data. So even if they lock the data, they don't have the access to your data. They'll just this is a way to just extract money from you. So even if your data is encrypted, you can just delete it and recover it from your previous backups. One more important thing while backing up things is you have to test your backups again and again. So this thing actually happened with an organization which I was working with few years ago. Was they used to take their backups. They were pretty confident that they have backups of their programs, or backups of their application base stored on cloud, but they were not checking that backup. They were not actually testing their application installed from that backup files. So what happened was, once their system was compromised and they had to restore everything from the backups, but the backups failed them. Backups couldn't cope up with their current version of application. So I'll say they were running on 4.5, and the backup was also up to 4.4, but the working backup was only up to 3.6. So this was the problem that occurred. So you need to make sure that your backups are also in working condition. So updates. One more important thing, that you have to be sure that updates, you should be updated. Most people think that updates of Windows or Macs are boring, but they are the ones that provide you with the kernel level security patches, or network security patches, or all the other patches that you have. So there are today also there are 360,000 new malwares added every single day. That is a big number there to comprehend. even I can't fully comprehend that number. So we have that habit to snooze out on updates, or snooze out on the latest uh, thing patches that the app providers give us. So but that should not be done. Most importantly, the OS updates, Microsoft Windows, Apple, or Mac OS, these updates provide you with all the latest vulnerabilities being patched. So I'll give you an example. Windows 7 end of life was planned on January 2020. Unless you are a paid customer of Microsoft, or there is some special arrangement made for you if you're using Windows 7. Otherwise, that all the support was taken away from Windows 7 and all the previous generations. So if there is assume that there is a network architecture in an organization where there are 50 computers connected to a LAN network, and there is a one endpoint of Windows XP or Windows 7 machine present on that network. So even if an attacker decides to get into that network, there are no official updates, security updates coming for Windows 7 or Windows XP machines. So if that attacker can easily get into Windows 7 machine, then he has the access to the whole network, right? So that thing should be looked after, that all your software and all your applications or operating systems are up to date. Even the antiviruses, since antiviruses are the first line of defense in your network infrastructure or your PC infrastructure, not the network infrastructure. The first line of defense in your network infrastructure would be the firewall, and the first line of defense in your personal computer would be the antivirus. So keep in mind that you are updated with your antiviruses also. Like Symantec, most of us today use Windows Defender since it's pretty competent and it is good enough. I don't recommend everyone using high-end antiviruses like Norton or McAfee. Windows Defender does a pretty decent job. Just make sure that you update all your systems time to time. So browsers, and don't forget about browsers. So browsers are your portal to the internet. They are the endpoint where the user actually connects to the internet. Chrome, Edge, Safari, Brave, all these browsers are timely updated, and you should be also updated with them, because recently, if you have if anyone of you follows XDA, or if are in tech community regularly updated, you might know that Chrome has decided to remove support for HTTP links. So if tomorrow, if you decide to visit any HTTP link, you will be shown with a big bold red warning that this site is not secure, and you should consider visiting some different sites. So even if so these some specific features, like Chrome has implemented only HTTPS strictly traffic. That is a feature that they have provided for our security and our benefits. So we should follow them. Internet Explorer, even Microsoft themselves, they tell us that you should not use Internet Explorer as we have removed all the support for Internet Explorer. But still, there are millions of devices today using Internet Explorer as their primary source of internet. The next point would be Internet of Things. Most of the Internet of Things devices today update themselves, like Alexa, Google Home, but some of the Internet of Things devices like light bulbs or your TV or refrigerator, some of the smart refrigerators today will have to be updated manually by connecting your computer or connecting it to your phone or through your app, something they have provided to give you the updates. So make sure that these devices are also updated, since those endpoints, the IoT endpoints, give the most personal information which is specific to the user, to the attacker. So what will happen if someone gets the access of your home automation system or your light bulbs? They can easily identify when you are awake, when you are asleep, what is your sleep schedule, what is your day schedule, when you are at home, when you are not at home. So this is a very critical and important data looking from the hacking perspective. Next thing, as we all know, is passwords. Passwords are something that everyone has to face while accessing the internet these days. But it is the most ignored upon thing. It's not something that people follow meticulously. And again, this was meant to be a joke. Someone figured out my password. Now I'll have to rename my dog, because most of the people don't bother to change their passwords, but they can rename their dog, but they can't rename their passwords. Managing passwords. Keep Most of us keep our passwords in our head. That is a good thing, but some of us use paper or sticky notes. Some people I have seen in my office also write down their passwords and keep in their drawer, or maybe pin it down to the whiteboard behind their desk. Or even some people keep their password in a notepad and save that notepad in the computer itself. That is also a very bad practice. So if your machine is compromised, all your passwords are present in the clear text in one single file. That's something that should not be done. Even if you decide to save your passwords in your machine, make sure that they are encrypted, or they are hashed by using some hashing algorithm. The next thing is you may use password managers like LastPass, KeePass, or Google's default password manager. I know some people are skeptic about using these password managers, but I'll assure you that most of them are safe. Check for the reviews. The password managers with more than 1 million downloads are, I think, pretty much safe to use. They have good reviews, and if you are even more skeptical, then you can just buy them. These are some of the free ones which I have mentioned in the presentation, but you can use the paid ones also. They can give you support, and they have the robust security architecture required to save your passwords in the encrypted format. And make sure that you don't use one password for all your accounts. That's self-explanatory. Yeah, you can avoid using items that are associated with you directly, like your address, your birth dates, your name, or your pet's name, or maybe even the school you were in or college you were in. That is an easy giveaway. If you know, there is a website known as Check My Password, or Password Strength Meter, or something like that. I'll share the link with you in the chat box later, where you can see how strong is your password. Most of the 8 to 10 character passwords can be breaked within 15 to 20 minutes by any computer, not just supercomputer, any computer. The main tip in creating a good password is not using password, but using passphrases. Like, they tell you to use 12 characters, but 15 or more is, I recommend, I personally use 15 character password. But because that's not a password, it's a passphrase. That's also easier to remember. People think that p at ssw0rd, this is a bad password. This thing can be cracked within 5 to 10 seconds by any dictionary. This is the first combination of letters present in a dictionary file. So what is a dictionary file? Dictionary file is a combination of all the letters and numbers, alphanumeric characters, uh, all the possible combinations of words or letters in a way so that it can be matched with the dictionary. Is a type of attack which will just enumerate your username and type in all the random passwords up until the successful password is hit. So these kinds of password at p at ssword, this will fulfill the needs of most of the websites. It is 8 character long. It has special characters. It has numbers. It has also a capital letter. So this will suffice all the needs, but it is still not a secure password. And whereas the next password, DC over Marvel forever. Again, that was a joke, but these are the passphrases. Length is important. Complexity isn't. Any 22 character password won't be easy for any machine to crack, as the complexity starts to increase exponentially. So as you can see, these are the list I had culminated for the easiest passwords cracked by and ranked by the year. These are the most common passwords. You can just screenshot it if you want, and avoid using these passwords, or don't use these passwords. One more important thing I would like to mention is two-factor authentication. Wherever possible, on any website or on any application, if there is an option of two-factor authentication, you should use it. You should never ignore that facility, because that is something that is most secure. Two-factor authentication will give you not just one layer of protection, another layer of protection, which is most of the authentication system. How an authentication system works: either you know something or you have something. So in this case, you know something and also you have something, that is your device. So or there is a third way of authentication, is a physical key, but that is not possible in case of softwares or virtual authentication is not possible by a physical key. So you can do is you can keep a strong password and then keep a OTP registration also, so that even if your password gets leaked, you won't and any attacker won't be able to log in. One more important thing is links. Most of the links that we receive through emails or WhatsApp or social media or any point of view, we have to verify these four things. First is verify the link. Second is hover over the link. Third is sniff test. And then the last step would be clicking on the link actually. If you get the link, you have to verify it. You have to check for the source of that link. Then when you get the link on your if you when you see the link on your computer, hovering is your friend. You have to hover over the link so that you can see where at the bottom of the screen you will see the URL. Most of the times what attackers do is www.google.com, they will write on the link but in the text, but the anchor tag or ahref tag will point to some other website that might be a malicious website. So make sure you hover over the link and check where the URL is going. The sniff test, after hovering, whatever site will be visible, you have to check it. You have to check that site from another tab and check if that is actually a legit site which you want to go. And then if all these three tests pass, then only you click on the link. Emails. So hacked or spoofed emails, they are something like this. So these are the some of the red flags that I had mentioned that I have mentioned. So here email address is okay because we can see the name. Unless the name is proper, we can't we won't be sure about the email address. So if there might be gmail.com or it might be yahoo.com, these are trusted email addresses. The name is also okay. We can see here Stacy, but the signature is odd. There is a concept known as email signature, which you can check at the bottom of the email. The link is .fr link, teamtext.fr. Usually any presentation link or any webinar link doesn't end with .fr. You have to check for the domain. If it is regular or .com, .in or .co.in, our regular domains should be trusted, but some other domains which might not be your regular place for presentations, that you should not trust. Same goes for the text messages. We most of us receive a lot of spam and garbage text messages sending us links. 50 दिन में बाल बढ़ाइए और 10 दिन में weight loss कीजिए. Those are some spam links which you have to avoid at all costs. They might be some attackers posing to send you some attachment or tell you to download some PDF which might contain some trojans or malicious files. Again, I have shown here the links how you can hover over something, and then at the bottom you can see www.evil.com. So you make sure that you are hovering. Important. On mobile phones, you can long press on the link so that the actual address is visible before clicking on the link. Even just the IP addresses are not trustworthy. You must click on internet. If you're accessing any website or any application, make sure that you're accessing it through a domain and HTTPS domain only. Do not visit any IP addresses unless it's a trusted or your organization's IP address only, because public IP addresses are the most vulnerable things present on the internet. Shortened URLs. There is this website linkexpander.com. We all know on YouTube or on any blogs, we have seen the bit.ly or the download links. They are usually shortened URLs, so we cannot be sure where it is pointed. So you can use this linkexpander.com to check before clicking on the links if it is a legit website. So this is a link which I had copied from YouTube and pasted it here in Link Expander and check for if it is legit. So I could see that it is a YouTube tips video only. It is not something malicious. Again, hover. In mails also hover works. Sometimes what happens is people use urgency or a sense of superiority to scam people or to tell people that this is a very urgent mail from customer support or from Amazon, and and in the sense of panic, or in that moment, people don't think and they just reply to the email or click on the link, like your password is compromised, please update it now. And people click on the update now and they are redirected to some of the phishing websites which are not secure or which might leak your information again. Yeah, most of the malwares are actually delivered by email attachments. So unless it is a trusted domain and unless it's a trusted address, never ever download any email attachments, macros, or anything which comes from your emails. Gmail nowadays has their own security provided in the email attachment, but once you enter into an organization, you might understand that most of the big organizations don't use Gmail as their mail providers. They have their separate independent mail architecture present, which they use to use for email communication, and that doesn't have any security features embedded into it. So even if you receive some suspicious email, don't open it, or ask for your system admin to check that email before opening or forwarding it into the office network. Yeah, again, CEO, CFO, some people might act as, I am a CEO of this company and I am offering you a job. Just send me your details over here, or send me your account credentials over here, which is a which they again create a sense of urgency. And in the moment of panic, people are vulnerable. I have seen people get vulnerable and people just give out their information, which they can use in any way possible. Yeah, phone scams. As you know, Jamtara, we have seen Jamtara. If someone is calling from, people call from saying, I'm from Dell customer care or I'm from Apple customer care service and I need these information. Make sure that you have placed the call, you have requested for that call. Make sure about that number, check on Truecaller, check on check on their official websites if they that is the number that they have provided. And if not, then don't give any of your personal information. Check for their ID, ask for their ID. USB drives and more. That is another endpoint which can compromise your network's security. Most of the IoT or USBs can be embedded with a malware, and as soon as you plug it into your computer, its only one task is to replicate and first further spread in that network. So if in computer networks, we know that there are classes of IP addresses or classes or ranges of networks. So in our college, we have the 10.10 range, which is a class A IP address range. So if some USB has a Trojan which has a code which can replicate itself on class A IP address range, and if our organization has that IP address range, then what will happen is if you connect your USB to let's say our computer department's one PC in networking lab, what will happen is it will just run its replicating script at the back end of the USB in your machine, and it will spread like wildfire, and there is no stopping. You'll have to bring your whole network down to bring out that malware or bring out that Trojan. Again, this encryption, I won't bother you much with this. Just wireless thing I'll mention again. Make sure that all your wireless access points or your routers are configured in WPA or AES security ways. WEP is an old standard and it can be again cracked easily. Any WEP passwords, I can personally show you getting cracked in 5 to 10 minutes. But WPA2 or WPA even 3 nowadays are coming into standards, or 802.11 are bringing security features which everyone should use, like WPA2, and protecting devices like BitLocker or File Vault or PIN passcode for your USB or hard drives. That is also an important thing. I have mentioned this earlier also. In Google Chrome, make sure that all the URLs are HTTPS. HTTPS will just encrypt your data in a secure tunnel, so that what will happen is no one other than Google or other than that website and your machine can decrypt what the data is flowing through that tunnel. even if you have, I don't know if you have, how many of you have computer networks completed, but if you have tried using Wireshark, uh, try analyzing packets and try connecting two devices in one network, and one device should be running Wireshark, and other device should try visiting HTTP and HTTPS websites in the same network. So what will happen is the HTTPS traffic will be visible to the Wireshark user in some garbage or some encrypted format, whereas all the HTTP form data, whatever you post on that website, will be easily visible through just Wireshark. So that is why HTTPS is very important. Data is the new gold. That everyone knows data is the new gold. In 2020, in 2019 only, data overtook petrol or oil as the most valuable commodity on this planet. So it's your responsibility that you keep your data secure. Organizations will try and give you tips, or they will build a robust architecture, but at the end, people are the ones who help break some system down. On itself, no system will break on itself. Only you as the end user will be the most critical link in any networks or in any organization security architecture. So even if last thing, I guess this is the last thing I'll like to mention, even if you are scammed, or even if you are attacked or something problematic, or even if some of your information is out there, don't need to panic. There are systems in place. There is government here to help you. There are police department and cyber cell over here who can bring down your information. As we know, there are even cases like forgery or scamming, or morphing of morph pictures are might circulate. That is also a part of cyber threat or cyber attacks on a personal individual. These things also can be removed, but you'll have to go through a proper channel. You'll have to go through the cyber cell, IT department of India, and Indian government. They are here to help you. And I think that's it for the awareness part. Now let's go to the career section. How can you, as students of today's generation, pursue a career in this? So basically, there are four teams in for cybersecurity, can be easily categorized into four categories: red team, purple team, blue team, and I have not mentioned the fourth one here because it's I'll get there in some time. So what a red team does is, red team members are ethical hackers, or as everyone knows, the most common part of cybersecurity, ethical hacking, penetration testing, are actually posing as an attacker to attack any organization's data to get information about what are the vulnerable endpoints and find out the flaws in the system. So all the work that red team does is act as an attacker and try to break into a networks into an organization's network as an external threat or even an internal threat, finding out the threats or the problems. So basically, what a chore does in a system or a thief does in a house before breaking in is what the red team does, just by taking the permission of the organization, or and then performing all the breaking in activities. The next team is the blue team. Blue team is nothing but the watchman or the security forces, which actually in real time, in lifetime, guard or are the protectors of the architecture or of the organization's data architecture. So if you have heard about IDS or IPS, intrusion detection system, or intrusion prevention systems, the people who manage the firewall, people who manage the network, they are present in the blue team. So there are SOC centers, big SOC centers, security operation centers present all around the world, all over in India. Most of the big companies have their own SOC centers where they, in real time, they monitor all the network traffic coming in and going out of their organization. So in that, they check for live attacks if there are any. So if some IP is constantly pinging them with huge amount of data, then that can be a part of DDoS attack. So immediately their task is to identify the source and block it. That is the task of blue team. The purple team is more of like in real life what police does. They are the part of forensic department. They track down when a system is broken down and why it is broken down, if there is an attack, who did that, and going to the root of it. So the cyber forensic part is covered under the purple team. And the last team which I would like to mention is SecDevOps, or security operations and security development. That is the part which is a bit an amalgamation of security development, networking, and all the other branches to make a security tool. Like a security developer, what he does is he has to know knowledge. He has to have knowledge of networking. He has to have knowledge of operating systems. He has to have knowledge of proper core development, and also uh, people in general, so that he can make tools which can make people's lives or cybersecurity architecture easier. So basically, people at Norton or Quick Heal, they are security developers. That is the most challenging and tough job in cybersecurity which one can land. It is, as you can see here, I have clubbed down the hierarchy. At the beginning, people usually start as security analysts, or security forensic analysts, or penetration testers, or cryptographers. That is the entry level jobs present in this field. As you go higher in the mid level category, there are, again, VAPT is a very wide branch. So security VAPT engineers are also present in the mid level. But as you get up in the link of blue team, there are security auditors, there are policy auditors, there are incident response auditors. These are all the positions present in the blue team hierarchy. And in the purple team and red team also, there are security architects which help decide the flow of the security data which will go from in and out of the organization. And at the top, or the senior management, there is the topmost position is given to the CISO, or Chief Information Security Officer, who dictates all the policy changes and all the rules and regulations an organization will follow while taking out the decisions for taking out all the security related decisions. This is the usually hierarchy which cybersecurity enthusiasts follow in corporate. There are other fields also. People can join government organizations. I personally have worked with the GST department and conducted some forensic analysis raids of some mobile phones and some laptops which were recovered. So that is also a lucrative career path. Uh, Another career path is independent researcher. You can become an independent researcher in cybersecurity. And last but not the least, the most important aspect of cybersecurity is bug bounty hunting. Many of us have seen many bug bounty hunters online who have actually earned more than a lot of corporate people. But it again requires a lot of practice, and you have to know the web development basics, right from operating system kernel level calls to the application level intricacies like JavaScripts and Ajax and how those things work. So a security engineer needs to know how to build before he can know how to break. That is the most important motto in cybersecurity. I think most of the things I have covered. If anyone has any doubts.
Yes, okay. So I think now we should move on to the Q&A session. If anybody has any questions, they can unmute and ask the question or put it in the chat box. Okay. Bharat, we have questions in the chat box. I'll read them to you if you want. Yeah, okay. As mentioned before, Domino's has a breach. So are companies doing enough to counteract these cyber attacks?
Okay, Domino's, I had mentioned previously Domino's. If you know Domino's, the breach which caused the Domino's was some internal misconfiguration or internal security misconfiguration which led to that breach. They have acknowledged that there was some configuration issue which caused the actual leak, and their data was actually present on an onion link. So if you know, onion is a part of a Tor network, and the Tor network facilitates anonymity. So people can put up their data or put up these breaches on Tor network or onion links, but the companies have slowly started to know the importance, or the awareness is not yet present in India, or under this subcontinent, it is our task to generate more and more awareness. Companies in itself have cybersecurity as their priorities on number 3 or number 4. To bring it up to priority number 1 is the customer's responsibility. If such incidents occur, it is our responsibility that we hold Domino's or any of such organizations responsible. We ask them questions: how is my data public? Why is it public? Why aren't you doing anything to keep my data secure?
Okay, we have another question. There are many types of cyber attacks. So, what are the most concerning cyber threats right now?
The most of the attacks which occur right now are two. I'll like to mention two of those. One is phishing attacks. So what phishing attacks do is most of people who are not from technical background or who are not from engineering or some tier 1 or tier 2 cities don't have so much IT infrastructure in their hand. We as we people living in cities know how systems or how mobile phones or computers work, but people in near villages or people who don't have access to so robust architecture of IT architecture easily are victims of phishing attacks. And the second thing is again scammer. Call scamming is one of the most trendy things, but I think people present here need not worry about that. They need to worry about the phishing attacks only. Because scam calls are mostly for people who don't know how to differentiate between scammers and real callers.
Okay. Next question. Do we need to have prior good coding knowledge to make a career in cybersecurity?
Coding knowledge is a bonus. Even if you don't know coding knowledge, there are career opportunities in cybersecurity, but they are more into managerial tasks. If you have to go get into core VAPT or core penetration testing, where you have to actually break into a system, you will need to have coding knowledge, or at least the basics of everything should have been clear in your college or your previous role, not just college. Right now, I'm working as a software engineer, but I aspire to become something or I aspire to build my career in cybersecurity because I have understood in my career that to break something, I'll have to know how it is built first. So coding knowledge is at most important if you are going to pursue career in technical cybersecurity part. But if you have decided to stick to the managerial roles like policy making or IDS IPS, that doesn't require coding knowledge. That just requires you to know the network architecture and networking knowledge.
Okay. What should one do if he suspects a cyber attack?
Sorry?
What should one do if he suspects a cyber attack? I think that is the question. Ishan, maybe you can elaborate a little on that. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
So suspect, what do you mean by suspect? So if there is a malicious link, simply you don't click it. And if you have to report, you can report it to authorities. There are CyberCell or CyberCell Twitter account. There is CyberCell, our government's official CyberCell website, where you can upload the link or upload the proof of that malicious attack, and government will do the job, needful task, and block that IP address or block that website from the internet.
Okay. Next, Google sometimes suggests a strong password, which is random jumbled letters and numbers, and we have no other option other than saving it on its password manager since it is jumbled letters. So, is it really feasible?
It is indeed, but you have to make sure that your Google's password is secure and safe initially. That is not a password. That should be a passphrase, so that tomorrow if your Google gets compromised, all your passwords will be compromised. So even if you're using any password manager like Google or BitPass or KeepPass or any of the password managers, make sure that password is not a password, it's a passphrase.
Okay, we have a last question. Is there any way that a 2FA can be bypassed?
There are few ways with which 2FA can be bypassed, but it's not something that is very common. It requires very high skilled knowledge in ethical hacking knowledge that would require something of an attack known as SIM swapping. But again, for that, the user's consent is required. If someone orders a SIM swapping request to, let's say, Vodafone, and they get their SIM swapped, then the user with current existing Vodafone number will get a notification. And if someone ignorantly just accepts it, then their SIM will get swapped and the two-factor authentication can be bypassed. But that's again, I'll tell you, it's a complicated process and it's not something that most of the newbie hackers can do.
Okay, we have another question. With AI, can we hack CAPTCHA?
AI can't hack CAPTCHA. That is something a computer vision will do. As we have seen in computer vision, the stronger tensor network you will build, or the stronger CNN you will build, the stronger AI or the computer vision algorithm can break the CAPTCHA.
Okay, that was the end of the questions in the chat box. If any one of you have any other questions, you can put them in the chat box or you can unmute. If not, then we can move ahead with the vote of thanks. I guess there's no more questions. Okay. So coming towards the end of the session, I would now like to present a vote of thanks. I would like to thank today's speaker, Varat Chine, for gracing the event and giving us valuable insights. I would also like to thank the counselors of both student branches for their constant support and encouragement. I thank all the volunteers of I2 IT and MMCOE who have worked very hard to put up this event in front of you. And lastly, I would like to thank all of you present here who attended the session and gave us a very good response. So thank you so much, everyone. And yes, we are done with this session, but we have a fun activity for you, which was actually scheduled before this session, but now we are conducting it after the session. So it's a logo quiz activity that we'll be conducting, and we'll provide you a feedback form link. So please make sure that you fill the form too. Okay, yes. So we are done with the session. Thank you so much, Varat, again. Thank you for being present and thank you for
It's my
guiding
pleasure.
us.
Yes.
Okay, Jagruti, over to you now for the logo quiz.
Hello guys, please fill the feedback form. We'll be starting the quiz very soon. Please don't leave the meeting. Quiz link has been provided in the chat box. Please click it and
Okay, the link for the quiz is there in the chat box, everyone. Please click on it so that you can go ahead with the quiz.
please make sure you put your original names and not the other ones.
I'm not able to edit the names, so should I just join with that one?
Yeah, okay, no problem.
We aren't able to change our names, I think so.
Yes.
Yes,
No, I'm
Jagruti,
not
we
able
cannot
to
change the names. Okay, it's okay. I think it's fine.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I guess most of you have joined this session quiz, so let's start it. Okay, so we have first three winners. Please tell your name and Insta ID so that we can give you a shout out on Instagram pages. Whomsoever was third, please provide your Insta ID and your real name. Thank you guys, you all can leave.